of just physical, physical noticeably, which normally what happens is I'll wake up and I'll be severely dehydrated. And I drink water. So these, I want to say like a week and a half ago, and then the last 2-3 days, but I've been on it more. I like doubled and tripled my water intake, and I haven't had any problems with it. For the most part, both of us, we just went through a lot of massive activations, elevations, expansions, and then being the observer, like being in that catastrophic situation. I mean, you're driving through town and there's nothing open but long lines at fast food restaurants, and just shortage of water, no milk. I mean, no eggs. I mean, there was just, that area they're accustomed to hurricanes. So, but with a hurricane, you know what's coming.
Right.
They said that the Texas power grid came supposedly this close to being shut down for months. So I don't know. People are getting like bills of like $3,000 and $1,000.
For the utilities?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they must have had some kind of plan where it was variable. From what little I've read, but yeah, it's just it was interesting. It was an interesting experience to observe people and how they were. And I'm not talking about what we call light workers, or I'm just talking about people.
Right.
We go in the grocery store. I went to the convenience store a lot, chasing water down, and I remember, we can start it like this. Like, so Morgan had a channel when we do our thing. And it had to do with, it's really along the lines of what you've been talking about the last 3 episodes on your advancing consciousness. But it was talking about, well, let me just say it this way. So she got the channel the next day. I think the next day, that's right. So we were at a friend's house. The lights went out. We woke up to that. We decided we were going to go to a hotel so we could find internet and better accommodations. And so I had dropped her off. I was driving around, and then I got the download, and it was, you're not just walking away from 3D, where you use that term, 3D frequency. You're actually walking into and expanding by virtue of that, the 5D. And so it said to me, in other words, you don't have to focus so much on what you're negating, but what you're creating. And then it said, now here's a couple of examples. So I walk into a convenience store, and the person that was the clerk was in the 5D. It was, I don't remember what the exchange was, but it was so obvious. It was like in my face, and then the lights start turning all gold, and I'm like, okay, this is one of the things. And then the next thing was the lady at the hotel who had come in at 7 p.m. to get some overtime. She was on her own at 11. I'm talking to her like after 11. And I guess it came down to one episode. I was standing there and we were talking and we were connecting, and it was a very 5D atmosphere. Like, she wasn't rattled. She had people calling her, the water's not on. I mean, this is like 4 floors of Marriott courtyard. And I just, I said something to her like, it's not even real. And she looked at me and she said, "What is your name?" And I said, "My name's Todd." She said, "My name's such and such." And then she had one of those plexiglass things, and she had a mask on, and I didn't have a mask on. And then she just stuck her hand out and shook my hand, and she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. I just washed my hands." I said, "It's not even real." She goes, "Yeah, you're right. You're right." So yeah, so it was interesting seeing people not projecting. And then, what I've been picking up on has been, like, over the last few weeks, has been, I can see in myself and I can see in others less judgment, less jealousy, less envy, less, less attachment to the old, and staying in your own lane, honoring people's journeys beyond the words, actually doing it. But that's what I'm picking up on. And also, Morgan and one of our friends was talking yesterday, and they visited, and I said, "Hey, how'd it go?" She said, "We both feel like 2 kids waiting for Christmas. Something's coming." I said, "Well, that's good, because Franco's on tomorrow. We'll find out." But yeah, so that's how it's been going. Yeah. It's good to have you back. We
Yeah,
got
I'm good
100.
to to be back. I always
Yeah.
enjoy our time together.
No,
So,
absolutely, man. It's yeah, it's always special for me. And I and, and I was and I'm not just saying this to blow smoke, but I was able to, because I got settled, go back and actually looked at the last three. I didn't get to watch all of them in their entirety, but the game we were playing, Shifting Your Game of Life, and the one I actually really liked the most, and I did watch the whole thing. I'm looking at it. Perceptions of Mistakes and Failure, Guilt, and Regret.
yeah.
Which, when I watched it, I actually almost wished I'd watched the last one first, but they're all connected, and I actually saw a comment on there. I think it was on the last one, and somebody said, "I just found your channel," talking about you
Mhm.
and Kimberly. I just found your channel. I had put up a comment on another channel, and then somebody recommended Advancing Consciousness, and they said, "You are now my channel." And I just go back to the same thing. The groundwork that you guys are laying down is only going to it's such a foundational opportunity for somebody who wants to put the time in. And like that person said, I'm sorry, that person in their comments said something like, "You have made me understand what I'm feeling,"
Mhm.
basically. So you guys are doing a great job. We're here to support you, and I know the community's been supportive. And yeah, I'm just I'm a bit amazed at what you guys put out. It's just that's like 10 days of work, which was really four of those episodes.
Mhm.
That's a lot of work, man. So thank you for that.
Well, it's absolutely my pleasure. The work is coming out because it's helping people with all the stuff that's going on right now, transitional and everything else. And each episode that is geared to exactly, it's like tuning into the energy of where everybody's at
Yeah.
and see where there's obstacles or trip points or there's somehow heaviness in the areas. Because even the last one around the idea of mistakes and guilt and feeling that they failed or something of that nature, that kept coming up. That theme kept coming up because a lot of people have related to that because they're conditioned program and labeled different things in their lives. And I found that the idea of mistakes and so forth seems to be a heavy one for people to let go and even to believe. And I don't even want to say believe, but activate that knowing that there are no mistakes.
Yeah.
This is the thing. And sometimes people think that, no, I made a mistake, I chose A instead of B, and so forth, and had all these negative outcomes and whatever else. And I go, no, yes, absolutely, you made a choice between A and B. Was it a mistake? It doesn't work that way. You cannot make a mistake. There's
Right.
no possible way. You make the best choice at the time. Now, when you're making that choice, there's a point of decision that's made there, which involves every part of you. It's not just the ego mind saying, "Oh, it's this or that." There's the whole part of you. It says, okay, how can we advance the body's consciousness? How can we advance the human entity consciousness? How can we more get in line with what we're here to do, not only personally, but also collectively? So, and then it also based on the energies that are existing at the time and the agreements and playmates that you're involved with, because there's family involved, there's extended family, there's partners, friendships, and whatever else. There's so many different connections that are going on because a lot of people think, we're just an island. It's not. That's not
Mm-mm.
the case. It's impossible to live it that way. You can believe it all you want, but it's not true. See, the thing is, every move we make, every breath we take, everything that we do causes a ripple effect, and it just bounces back and forth with everything that's going on, with everybody else that's there. And so this is the thing. Uh, the heaviness, like I've been saying for several years, and you've been going through it a lot. Everybody, to some degree or another, have been going through it, and much more. Letting go of all of the old stuff that was all created in that inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D, all of our perceptions, beliefs, systems, and so forth. However, then the things start coming up, and I'm going, what's the biggest hook here that everybody's getting? I keep seeing them getting caught, right? And that was it. That was the thing. It was about failures,
Yeah.
mistakes, feeling guilty for either making a choice or not making a choice, guilty for how they played the game with somebody. And then there was also the other part, where there was resentment and
Mm.
feeling regret and stuff like that. Um, and the thing is, the collective energy reflects that very powerfully. However, it's losing its capacity. It's
Yeah.
losing the way it can attach to people. But the thing is, a lot of people hold on to that.
Yeah.
And by holding on to it, they feel that they have a reason why where they're at right now. And the other one that comes in is self-punishment. You
Yeah.
know, this whole thing, there's this whole idea, which is something I was going to talk about next, I think in one of the other episodes. But one of the things that keeps coming up is the religions and everybody else, because of the really heavy influence about right, wrong, good, bad, even karma is a part of it,
Yeah.
coming in and saying, oh, I created all this negative karma, I'm going to have to pay for it and whatever else, I got to go through all this things. But that's not being shown or being experienced that way unless they create it. But at the same time, they feel guilt
Yeah.
about themselves, about what they did or didn't do or whatever it is. And so they create a back end. And when I say back end, within their operating system of, say, the ego, where they will create what people call self-sabotage, create environments where I have to punish myself. Or the second part of it is, I shouldn't say or, and the second part of it is I got to repay, like what I didn't do or what I did. I have to have some
Redemption.
redemption of some sort.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And I got to get my brownie points again or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? So these are some of the things that right now, with all of these energies coming in, and we're going through a powerful purging process, those things are coming to the surface, and those are the stickier ones. And that's why, I covered that, and I led into it because of that. And this is the thing, I'm sure you guys, people online and possibly even yourself, we made certain choices. We went through our life and so forth. And during our life, we adopted ideas that, maybe I screwed up, maybe I did this or whatever it is. And we believed it because the collective supported it, other playmates supported it. And somehow you feel damaged now. It's like, what am I going to do? Or whatever it is, I can't fix it, And this is one of the things, too, with working with people over the years. I always felt with people, the idea coming up, it's like, only if I could relive my life again, I would go fix this and fix that and whatever else. Well, it's not about fixing anything. First of all, nothing was broken. Yeah, maybe you had an intensified scenario or situation with yourself and with others. And it doesn't matter if you played the negative role or somebody else played the negative role. It's the same, And so, but the thing is, when we looked at all of that, and we actually took a regressional and gone in to do that, they actually noticed it changed tremendously the opportunity that they actually gave themselves, and noticed that it was out of alignment, making a different choice.
Yeah.
That choice was perfect, right? And this is the thing, because we're powerful beings, and we know as creators, we only create, we only experience what serves us. And the same thing with the free will. There was a lot of misconceptions around free will, sovereignty, and all of that stuff. Well, the one thing I kept saying over the years is that free will exists fully and completely, and the free will is unified in a sense, but meaning body, soul, human entity, soul. However, what we've done is we've kind of created the illusion that we didn't have free will, and we got convinced how to use the free will. Right? This is why all of the control structures that people talk about, the elites, whatever it is, they cannot infringe on free will. Now, even the governments and whatever else have been playing on these roles of putting out regulations, laws, and whatever else, looking at they can infringe, but it's an illusion. They're saying it, but there's no power to it. And the thing is, if we believe it, then we make it real. But because there's so many people making it real, then it represents as real. But that realism is still an illusion. It's not truly real. It never has been and never will be. So it's that realization, and this is one of the other bursts we just got right now, because not only all of these adjustments, like you were saying, the download you received was to actually more crystallization of the fifth dimensional consciousness, and actually also creating an alignment within ourselves into that higher consciousness. Not everybody's going to be able to use it right away, but the ones that are great. But even the ones that can't use it right away, they're at least getting that upgrade within themselves, so that they can actually be able, even playing in the organic 3D. We're not talking about the inverted stuff that we're purging out of the system. Some of the stuff that we've all been going, I don't know if you've noticed that the memory is choppy in a sense, because it's almost like you have complete blankouts. It's like
definitely
comes out completely, and that is because there's a restructuring where the ego itself. Let me make this. I just want to elaborate it a little bit so it makes a little bit more sense. A lot of times, what we are doing, the actions we're taking, and everything else, it's managed by the ego.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so what happens is, with these energies that are coming in, it's creating a breakdown within the ego. So the ego, when it takes a blow or energetic, what we call disruption, because of instability, whatever was done based on the ego, running through the hands of the ego, for example, it disappears. It's almost like, did I do this? Did I do that? Whatever it is, it's almost like completely blank. You can't even access it. You don't have no memory of it whatsoever. And that's because that blimp, or whatever it was, that blip that they had, that happened, was actually more of the deterioration within the ego's managing of what you do and your thought patterns too.
Yeah.
So
that just happened to me. This happened to me about an hour ago after the last show. We've got some friends here, and they are helping us clean the bus up. That bus that was gifted to us.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was looking at all the fluids, and I said, I remember pouring a whole bottle of window washing fluid into the container, and I think it all leaked out. It doesn't work. And then I said, wait a minute, maybe that's my car, because my car's not working, or maybe it's both cars. And literally, I don't know in this moment what the hell. I know my car doesn't work. And is it the bus too? Or is it, I don't even know. But yeah, you were saying something else too. I think this is really important, what you brought up, what you're talking about, and these particular frequencies: failure, guilt, regret, shame, blame. Because one thing I have noticed this last few weeks in our own field and in observing others has been the behavioral patterns, the second nature things that we do as a result of these frequencies having been imprinted upon us, right? So what I'm talking about, and it's kind of, for me, it's kind of difficult to describe because it sounds more charged than it really is, but we only have these words to work with. Mm-hmm. And what I'm talking about is what people might call agenda, entitlement, just these really subtle, under the radar programs that we have these natural reactions. And that's what you were talking about in terms of the redemption thing. Redemption doesn't exist in 5D, right? So think about that. I've been doing this with a lot of words. I'm going, okay, that doesn't even exist. Because a lot of times we'll think, oh, well, shame doesn't exist and inequality doesn't exist. But it's these other things, these other words that are the polarities of Morgan asked me the other night, what's the opposite of possession? And I'm going, well, freedom, and then she says sovereignty, and then there's all these other words come out, but they're not even in the dictionary in 5D because there's no need for them to be in the dictionary.
Correct.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But what I was getting at was that seeing the unconscious programming in others and yourself that are a byproduct of these frequencies that have been imprinted, which is basically an externalization or a rationalization, which is really rooted, in my opinion, in victim perpetrator, that whole thing where we know that's a really big one that we've got to bring to that center point. Yeah, so I thought it was that last one, the perceptions, of the mistakes and so on. I thought that was really timely. I guess that's what I'm getting at. Maybe that's why I thought it was, the better of the three. Although all three are good. Everything you do is good. Very well explained, though.
Yeah, they go back to back, and of course that one was more hard hitting because a lot of people can relate with it, and it's a big one for a lot of people. And if we can clear that out as much as possible and completely eventually, then it makes all the transitional part very easy. And what you were saying, that some of the stuff that doesn't exist in the 5D is true, and a lot of it doesn't. Most of it doesn't even exist in the organic 3D. It exists very powerfully in the inverted and the 2D, because that's, the polarity was very powerfully accentuated in those terms. But the polarity again was to actually create separation of energy. Because what happens if you have holistic 0 point and you polarize it and say, well, I'm going to split it, I'm going to make a light and dark, see if I can put my hands there, light and dark, that way I can get the light and dark to clash with each other.
Yeah.
At the moment you collapse it, then it goes back to its original state, which is what we call 0 point, neutrality, oneness, all of that. So part of the inverted stuff was to create those separation from each other, and separation from every aspect of it, a separation from the soul to the body, the soul to the human entity from every part of it got soul separated, including the mind. Everything was fractured, and then the ego mind was kind of the manager of all of that and not really allowing all of it to come in. So this is the thing. And I know sometimes people get charged with this whole thing of light and dark.
Yeah.
You're a light worker, you're a dark worker. Well, or whatever they call it, light worker. And the thing is, you can't look at it and say, well, I'm a light worker, and demonize the dark, what people call dark, which is just basically a different spectrum of light that reflects and carries less information and a little bit less consciousness. But also the same thing as the light worker does not have full.
Right.
It doesn't. People think, oh, I'm a light bearer now and I've got it all. Well, the moment you don't even say that, and you see yourself as the whole thing, you can't say I'm light or dark, because it doesn't exist. You're the whole thing. So the thing is, the spirituality was played with as an opportunity, not to demonize that either.
Yeah.
To say, okay, now we're going to say either you're a light worker or you're the dark. Did you ever notice, and I'm sure you did, and a lot of people have noticed, that once all these people that came in with the light workers, they were demonizing all the dark, and trying to find who to blame, and
it's the Spanish Inquisition and Reformation all over again.
Exactly.
No, yeah, I had an experience like that with a brother on a first show yesterday, and it got pretty heated, which hadn't happened in a long time, but it was all in love. I mean, but that was one of the things that I took issue with was, well, if you're not with us, you're against us. I'm like, what are you talking about? But yeah, I see, the way I always look at it is, for me, this is just for me, like probably 10 years ago, or when I was going through 2016, integrating dark and light in the cemetery next to where I live every night, was I saw the whole, the one that we all comprise, right? And then I saw the one go, let's do something different, and split in half and now created two. So that told me that every single one of us took part in a planned separation with a purpose.
Correct.
End of story. For me, that was it. I'm like, okay, well, that means, now getting there and experiencing that and embodying it, that's, I guess the road is a little bit different. But before we get off on anything else, I want to go back to what you said too, because actually, I actually had a question, which I normally don't do. Morgan put up a comment a second ago, and it reminded me of what I was going to ask you because it's along the same lines. So we have this transition happening, and this goes along the lines of what we're talking about with that last episode, with the perception of mistakes, regrets, our judgment, basically. And that is, we're transforming the physical experience. We're getting more and more in tune with that, thanks to people like you, and it's being talked about. But let's just say, like in her example, she was talking about Canada. If you go into Canada, you've got to take a COVID test, or you got to be in a hotel room at $2,000 and da 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 da. So the question is, like, how do we approach something like that when we know it's not real? Mm-hmm. Like, how do we alter and transform the reality, the true reality? Because it would only make sense if those things, and we've watched this happen in our lives, these things that are actually benign and get removed. Mm-hmm. They fall away, or they transform themselves, or whatever the case is. But how do we approach stuff like that? How do we approach these mandates and these different things that are suppressed upon us or impressed upon us? Do we do that? Are we ready to do that strictly from an energetic standpoint, from the soul, from the imagination, from our thoughts forward, or do we still have to play the game?
No, I mean, the thing is, the game's only going to be part of your experience, or anybody's experience, if there's still enough back end thinking that there is authority that has power over us, or the fact that, this is the way the game is and we have no choice in the matter. And when you're quite neutral about it, in a sense where you're not even putting attention to it, and you don't really need that experience because it's not going to trigger anything else for you, then from that state, you don't even bring it into your consciousness. You're going to just travel. And when you get there, you won't even be noticed as you walk through, for example. And if you are, then you're just testing yourself and saying, hey, I'm not choosing to go down this path, or whatever it is, or saying, and not to get angry, because if you are, then you're polarizing it, and then you're going to have more conflict. And say, well, you have no power over myself. Yeah. And if anybody says, well, this is what we're told to do, and say, well, that's fine, but I'm not.
That's how I approach it. I was talking to my friend Vera. She's in town. Her and her partner. Mm-hmm. They've been over here for a year from Europe, and we were talking about something. I can't remember what it was. I think it might have had to do with what we might call abundance or resources. And I said, I can't really explain it, but I just focus on that frequency and being that frequency, and don't really get caught up in, I got to do this, or I got to do that, or not do this, or not do that. I think it's an evolving thing. But there's so many parallels. Everything's a parallel, I guess. Mm-hmm. And so if I see one thing happening, I know it's affecting a situation like that. For instance, I'll give you an example. A few nights ago, in our normal routine, we put our hands together and we didn't say much. And I noticed Morgan putting her hands on me, she wasn't getting fresh with me. She was
Why not?
Containing herself. But what was happening was, in her mind, she was Morgan. Mm-hmm. But her body was mine. Now, what I mean by that is she could feel a movement, but her body wasn't moving, right? So a couple times she put her hands on me, I think, just to try to, figure out, differentiate what was going on. But in her mind, it was, I was heard basically. Now, I'm not talking about what people call twin flames or
Mhm.
any of that. What I'm talking about is something happening that's affecting the biology and obviously the etheric aspect and the body that is taking a physicalization in oneness. And I know this has got to be happening because I see it happening in telepathy. I see it when people come together in flow.
Mhm.
But I mean, something like that tells me that these issues of borders and passports and quarantines and stuff is is petering out. It's fading away. It's feathering out. But do you have any explanation, by the way, for what I just told you? Does that?
Yes, yes. So once we understand, and this is the thing, that we're two, each one of us is a very specified, specific frequency, signature, holographic expression. So to create more of that knowingness and that reactivation within ourselves, those those two columns of spectrum of light that looks like that we're two separate physical forms intertwine each other. So there's an exchanging going on within the codes and the energies and so forth. And then there's a recognition of that oneness because there's nothing else.
Right.
So that's kind of the experience that's been happening. And that can happen with, specifically when somebody's with you, but at times there's also a merging where you actually move into a whole area and you're just merging with that whole energy.
Right.
Because the thing is, a collective is made up of multitude of spectrums of light, which we call holographic expressions of physical forms, but there isn't any. There is no form. There's not even a separation within it, but it's just kind of created that way. So a lot of the things that we experience at times, we get to feel, we get to mingle with that energy. So you're basically pulling from each other, and I'm not saying pulling it in the sense of pulling, but in the sense where that connection elevates everyone in that whole cluster. So what you experienced with Morgan was the two of you, you know, did an exchange, but an exchange of experience codes, spectrums of
Mm.
light, energy fields, and also reenacted within yourself or reactivated in
Yeah.
the sense that oneness. That actually becomes a catalyst to be able to see more things as one, like
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. That's been the gift, I think, of the as I see it, in a non-romantic, a template or a tool or whatever you want to call it. That to me has been, as I've observed partnerships and collaborators, and then in my own experiences, that what we achieve, like just say it's me, Morgan and I, what we achieve, or even me and you,
Mhm.
that continuity and correlation of oneness is then you've experienced. So now you can take it and you can do it over here and you can do it with her and you can do it with him. I had a really interesting show just before this with Amani Naji, who's a really balanced guy, very cool dude. And we were just talking. He's very connected. And I asked him, what I ask a lot of people, do you ever receive collective intel? And so we were just having this conversation. And he said, um, I don't, I know this is what I see. It's not really, just not anything that's out of the ordinary that people haven't talked about. But he said, I do think there's going to be kind of an explosion. And I said, well, what do you mean? Now, he said, what do you think? And he was talking in regard to the distortion, what's the suggestive programming and such, the false flag frequency, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
And I gave my answer. And I know you can't give everything away, but I have noticed, and we talked about this, I think in November, December, how you were starting to see some, as an example, UFO disclosure stuff, right?
Mhm.
CIA released 3 videos, and the former Israeli space chief came out and said we're on Mars and so on. But I have noticed in the last couple of weeks, it's like every day, like I just saw one today. There was a big cigar shaped UFO that went by a plane in New Mexico, and you're almost seeing it every day. So it looks like the presenters that are playing that role are amping this up, and of course, this has all been forecasted for years and years. So on that note, I I'm of the mindset that if I think there's going to be something explosive, then there's going to be something explosive. But if, again, going back to what you were saying earlier about the rules and the borders and such, I just don't have it in my field. And I actually talked to him about you, and I said, as an example, 10 days before the election, he said we could go this way or that way, and we end up in the same place, but we all make this decision. So I guess my question is, do you, how far out is the intel? I know, like, before the election, we hadn't decided 10 days before the election, right?
Mhm.
So are we literally doing everything, and it's physically manifesting days afterwards? I mean, is it happening at that level? I mean, can you, someone like you can, even the intel that you have with the councils and with your aspects and such, can you see that far out there anymore? Is it getting shorter? I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it isn't. Anything that you see further is something that they're planned and staging it, but there's no certainty it's going to play out that way because it's being modified all the time. But you only get little bits of it. You're not getting as much details because the details are kind of being worked out. Because I think I've talked with you about it, even with this election stuff. The A and B option, which ends up the reason that we're where we are now with option B, for example, is that it was the best tool of disclosure
Mm-hmm.
based on where everybody was at. The same thing of what we were talking about, these borders and so forth. Part of the disclosure is coming to the realization, because the collective still gives a lot of power to so-called fictional authority and rules, because it's all fictional. It's all just made up. But look at it this way. Every level of restriction without any real backing actually amps things up for people to come to the realization is like, what is this game here? I'm not going to give this any more power. I'm going to do whatever regardless. And that's already happening across the world right now because a lot of people are just saying, forget it, I'm not doing it. So look at the administration in the States right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much being uncovered because of these, whatever their authorities, whatever they call those things. Anyways, I don't know all the details. I can't remember always the names that they label there in the States because I don't follow it that much.
Yeah.
At all, just bits and pieces once in a while. Executive orders. Orders. All the different playmates that are involved, and even the head guy. If you look at his energy, it's depleting and it's changing and he's just flip-flopping whatever it is. And guess what? It's there because there was so much. Because when I looked at it, and when I was working with the beings and we looked at A and B, A, which was the preference originally, was not going to be taken well. In the sense there was too much still resistance. So it's like this. Okay, you want to go try it out? Go try it out. Let's go show you what it's like, and so forth. Because what's happening is more and more people get to break down the illusion that saying this is the answer versus this. Neither one's the answer. Both of them are just paths, because the only way we actually restructure it is us together. It's not about who comes into power, what rules there, if you take down this or that or anything of that nature. That doesn't really matter, because it's really us that's stepping up. And there's been so much energy and so much focus still being put that A or B, a pile go here and a pile go there, or whatever, So this whole thing now, like we were saying earlier, with Canada coming in and whatever else, that you have to go through this This plays two roles. First of all, it's bringing up the fact that this is getting crazier and crazier, and people are going to finally say no more. But to say the people that are already awakening, and are on the process, and a lot of them are online right now, and that are already going through the process, and they've already made progress. But should you be faced with it, and then there's a fear or an unfairness, or the fact that, oh, this is crazy, how do I bypass that? That's presenting some old programs that are still active. So it's helping them to actually go deeper, to let go of all that stuff. Because the moment you don't even have to ask it anymore. And I'm not saying ask it in this forum, but I'm saying ask it to yourself. How do I bypass this? The fact of, like you were saying earlier with the energetics, that doesn't even come into your consciousness. You go there, and what happens? You're going to see the movie that does not impose that. So you're because we have multiple parallels being experienced each moment. So as soon as we give power to one existence, because that's just an option, and saying, hey, the blinking lights say, go this way, that way you get to go through all this, stuff. You get locked up and whatever else, and you got to get this thing up your nose and whatever. But then you go, nah, I'm going this way. But you're going that way because you feel that that's your way. Yeah. Not because you're resisting this way. It's just your way. This feels natural. And you go that way. And guess what? That movie does not have an involvement where you're now bombarded and saying, okay, get in the caravan. You're being shipped to some, hotel where you're going to be, wait there until you get swabbed or whatever they call it, tested and all of that. It doesn't work that way. So it's the thing is, if there's a fear to it, then yeah, you want to address the fear. What's the story of the fear? Yeah. Fear of authority, fear of the fact that you don't have power, or you're not empowered, or whatever, that you could be a victim to the whole thing. So you want to work towards those things, because those are just reflective of all the old stuff that we've given so much power, lived our life around, because we want to create a new world. We want to create a new life stream. You can't hold any of the old life stream. And right now, you know what it is? The old life stream is getting more and more uncomfortable. It's getting hotter and hotter. So you can't hold on to it. It's the thing. And the whole thing about investment too, investing in your old life stream. I invested years for my kids, for this, for that, whatever. I'm not even talking monetary. I'm talking about investment of time, energy, and labels and whatever else. It comes to the point, like anybody, and I'm sure you've seen it, where somebody, has a certain life stream and a certain way of life, and then says, I'm done with this. And they drop everything. They get out of their career, they get out of their relationship, they move, and they go into, not bouncing around, but moving from place to place, and just experience and be relaxed and not carrying all that burden and everything else. What happened? They get to that point, and I'm not saying that's where everybody goes, but it gets to, that doesn't matter to me anymore. This is the life I'm creating. So all of the time and energy and whatever it was put in that they invested is now, it doesn't matter anymore. That was a great experience up to this point in time. Yeah. For example, I had somebody that asked me a question the other day. Actually, it was yesterday. I had a call with somebody. I did a podcast around that. I'm going to, as soon as I get it cleaned up and everything else will be up, but I don't know if the question was in that one. But the question was a young person, young, early 20s, said, listen, I just came out of university. I, of course, created a lot of debt and whatever else through the educational system. I've come through all of this. I follow the family rules and whatever else. And I've been out for a while. And she goes to me, I can't go look for a job. And I've got, degrees and whatever else. I can't go look for a job. And I said, what do you feel about it? She goes, I put all this time and money and effort and everything else, but I can't feel that I can go there. It's like I'm going to go and put myself in a prison. Mm-hmm. So I don't care how many years. I think she was saying 5 or 6 years of schooling on top of, I mean, like university and college, whatever she took. She goes, I can't go down that path. And it was okay for me to go spend that many years with in school. But, and she goes, the only thing I'm going to have to deal with is I'm going to have to deal with my parents and my, you know, family friends, because I'm not going there.
Welcome
And
to the
after doing it all, you know, you got your papers, you got your thing. Nah, I can't do it. What happened? Now, if you look at it and you say, oh, no, I invested all this time, all this money, all this effort and everything else. No, at least I got to go do it for a few years and get some reward out of it. But with the changes that we're going through, energetic and otherwise, it's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to go live life.
Yeah.
On my terms, whatever that's going to be.
I think some of these situations like we just went through, and I know there's been some going on, obviously in this country with these 2 gigantic winter storms and of course other parts of the world, but these, you know, catastrophic type of occurrences or, you know, events or situations where there's, you know, scarcity, apparent scarcity. I think that's actually contributing to this kind of an unconscious role, like you're talking about with this individual, where they don't really know, they don't really get it all, or maybe they don't even think about it, but they just know, you know, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So
Yeah,
we
exactly.
had the good fortune of interacting with my nephew and my 2 sons and a couple other relatives, and of course, and Morgan starting to come out, you know, which I think is indicative of just the feminine energy itself being more vocal. Had a few things to say, which were incredible to see the charge that it had on the older people, but the younger people, especially the kids, which are in their 20s, they were just lit up. They just absolutely lit up. And I said to her, what was all that, you know? And she said, because somebody's saying what they're seeing. Like they're seeing all this stuff out there, like the job and the career and the house, and they get the kids and you get the pension, and they're looking at it going, that's not even real, you know? So it's almost like it's beyond a verbal kind of thing. It's just, and that's what I'm seeing, is where there's this invisible thread that's kind of taken hold and taken command, really, in a steady, deliberate way, that I'm just looking at it in awe. You know, I get back to, you know, like my work, and I just go, what can you do? Because it's all about expansion, and you're following the universe as I'm made in the image, and Soulogy is made in the image. And how do you add more frequencies to build an ever expanding vibration? And all I can come back with is a conversation like this, pretty much, other than people's like artistic expressions and creative expressions. But like this to me, like that conversation, which I was really not talking, I was listening and watching, that was just so activating. Like I know codes were just exploding in my body watching these kids come on board, you know? So I don't know how I got started on that, but something you were talking about.
It was perfect. It was perfect. I'll share something. So everybody close your ears. You can't hear this.
Yeah.
Between you and I. You know that fancy weather, that nice cold weather and blast that you got there?
Mm-hmm.
It's artificial.
That didn't surprise me a bit.
Okay. Because Texas became one of the gems in the United States that people were flocking to. From California, from New York, from different states.
Yes.
Because of how it looks there and how it is there, because the progressive leadership there is
No taxes, no state taxes.
taxes. And it's like, oh, maybe we need to kind of discourage people and show some of the weaknesses of that. So it was using satellites and so forth, and you know, whatever.
Yeah, that surprised me. And you know, the other interesting thing is, and I know
Nobody heard that.
the other interesting thing, yeah, is that I know everybody, and of course it's beyond at least my conscious comprehension, you know, because I want to talk about dream state in a minute, but during this period, but you know, I know everybody's like the center of the universe, and you know, so I'm not saying that Morgan and I or me or you know is you know something that's any different than anyone else. But what I noticed on this trip, well, the first thing there was all these signs. I mean, all kinds of synchronicities. And one of the first things I noticed was when we got to a friend's house where we stayed the first few days, I noticed a single chemtrail going across, like marking the spot we were at, which isn't the first time. And I thought, wow, this is something's aligning here. But it wasn't something. It was all these things. It was these kids, you know, listening to this divine feminine frequency, vocalizing at an expanded level. It was the transition of my uncle. It was the meeting my father. It was, so this is kind of personal, but at the same time, it was going to the grocery store and seeing people being present and not projecting and not freaking out, and community, you know, unity. There was just all these alignments. And on top of it all, I could see so loudly things like that, like artificially created things and subliminally presented things for the, you know, the objective, of course, to be, you know, that we take it and run with it. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me a bit.
Well, the thing is, too, the option came up. So, more insight. The option came up was to interfere it, to stop it from happening. In the sense where, because the satellites were aimed, and what they did is they changed the patterns. They were dragging it physically, in a sense, if you call it physically, energetically, from the north, way north. And it was going to be interfered, but the team had said at the time, they said, okay, great, this is going to actually bring people even closer. And because that's the back end of it. So that's why it didn't get interfered with. And I said, okay, let's see how it goes. Let the people come together instead of being discouraged. I mean, that was the intent, the original intent, not from the team, but from the control structures that exist that are kind of losing power. And also to create a disruption in the harmony that people feel, because you know, Texas has a really very interesting energy, and it's a good energy in a sense. You know, I mean, every energy has its ratios of polarities and focus points and whatever, but in comparison to, you know, most of the United States, it has, and it became a very powerful attraction point. So the intent was to discourage and to show, hey, you know, their infrastructure is not that good, and the fact that they don't know how to cope with snow or ice, and you know, we're going to have whatever it is. But at the same time, it was more of people coming together and say, okay, well, we'll let it happen. It's no different than how this administration is there. Okay. And again, that administration is also affecting what's happening in Canada, Mexico, but what's happening in Europe. It's what's happening in Asia and everywhere else, you know, so it's interconnected, including Australia and stuff that's even way on quite a distance from everybody. But it's all playing out. So when you look at it, I mean, yeah, 2021 is, like I said to you some time ago, it's like 2020 on steroids, but it's not going to leave many things beyond. Yeah. But we are going to achieve. Okay, this particular wave that we're in goes till about the middle of March. Then we have a very interesting energy coming in around the 21st of March.
Oh, wow.
And so there's going to be some things in the 21st. And I don't know exactly how to describe it at this point because it's in the works sort of thing. But not from my end, of course. I'm just sharing tidbits that I get to see. Some things I'm not allowed to say, you know, whatever. But again, the only reason they say is because it's not firm, and then you say, okay, well, you said this and it turned out to go with something else, so that's the only thing.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be from April 1st, like April April and June are April, May, and June. Actually, all 3 months are going to be huge shifts
Wow.
from what we see in our whole reality. Not only the people that are playing in it, okay, but also what we see. It's like that dimension, that holographic is going to go through a morphing and transforming of sorts. So it's going to be really reflective all over. Now, some people will experience certain intensities, but there, from what I see, it should not to make things. Um, See, this is the thing that gets caught up, is people are waiting, and it's not about waiting anything. Waiting for better times or waiting for the next wave that's going to make him feel good. So the thing is, all of these things that are coming in are really allowing us to get to that point ourselves, and when we are ourselves, because one of the focus that people put in is like, oh, when things get better around me in my world or whatever it is, then I can feel good. I can feel this way or that way. But the thing is, this process works the other way around. The process is we are going through the changes, and that's changing what's all around us. Because the world really, it's like you have this screen that has its own consciousness in it, but it's saying, and like even the organic matrix, it's saying, hey, you got all of this available right now. You're the ones that can activate it. You're the ones that can actually unpack it. You're the ones that can actually start utilizing it. But I can't project it. I cannot throw it at you because that will impede you. And you have chosen not to be impeded. You're not to be feeling disempowered. Imagine the two options. Everything gets changed around you. And the other option is you're the one that changes everything around you. One's empowering, the other one isn't.
That's right.
So the thing is, how do you discover your capability, your beauty, or that essence that you are, if you're not actually using that to shift every part of this experience?
Yeah.
See, the belief, this is the thing that's also being shaken up. We're believing that we're here, the playground's mapped out, and we're just here to participate. But it's not. We've come here, yeah, to participate to a small degree, but to participate in a different form, not just to come here and just play the game the way it is. You've come here to actually utilize the game to change and upgrade the game. This is why many, what people like to call themselves as going through this process of enlightenment or whatever it is, they're getting turned on, meaning onto their higher aspects, so that they can actually step into the role of the redesigning and everything else that we're doing.
Yeah.
As much as I said that the first 5,000 years we were in our organic state and our body functioned differently, our environment was different, we didn't have everything that we were playing with right now, and the polarity didn't exist and all the fragmentations didn't exist. It's not that we're doing the return. There's a part of that return, but you can't return it in the same fashion because you're talking about 15,000 years ago to 10,000. So that's that window. The whole collective on not only planet Earth, but we're talking about the solar system, the galaxy, and the universe have upgraded. So this all has to be. So our matrix has been upgrading, and we've been going through stages of upgrading, but that upgrade has to be utilized and expressed and experienced. That's the part that we are going through right now. So it's not like, because I hear it from people, well, it's, the changes are not happening fast enough. I mean, there's a lot of things happening, but the changes they think, oh, it should look this way. Oh, okay, now we got the government all on track. Now we got, everybody's got equal income or whatever it is. And we have this, we have that. Okay, now that change is finally coming. All right, we're in 5D. Well, you can be, and we are, we're on a platform that has organic 3D and organic 5D. Mm-hmm. But even Gaia has said it very clear. It says, it's for you to unpack it. It's for you to live it. It's for you to utilize it. It's not that, oh, I'm going to throw it at you and this is all you got to play with. No.
So it's you, and I've said this quite a bit, not because I'm smart, but it's just obvious what you're saying. That energy has to be engaged in order for it to perpetuate and to expand. And I think it would be safe to say, this is a question to you, none of that which you're speaking of is engageable to any degree of merit if we're still running programs of separation when you get right down to it. I mean, and separation is to me everything from whatever political polarities there are to the illusion of time or space, or it's like, and that's why I was asking earlier about that Canada example, because it just seems like, and I know I've mentioned this to you before, but it just seems like that we're headed a direction, which obviously, like you said, is based on our the level of engagement that we take with this available and accessible energy and whatever. But it's the writing's on the wall. I mean, like we don't got to do anything, but letting go of the old, which is really one program, which is separation, is a prerequisite to the full potential of what you're speaking about. Yeah, I mean, it's, and now you're talking about April, May, June, and as you were talking about that, now you go into this, it feels to me like what you're saying is that these 3 months are going to offer, at least up to this point, phenomenal opportunities for elevation, which would mean to me that I would think that on a collective scale, many of the things that are holding us up are going to be deconstructed, disclosed, or whatever you want. You know what I mean? They're going to have less impact. Otherwise, I would think it would be near impossible to elevate. And again, because you're holding on to these narratives and these different things that have been taking our energy and our power.
Yeah. Now look at it this way. And you made a really good point, and I just wanted to give a context to it. So here you are, all of us, we're beaming out. Our whole essence is beaming out completely full spectrum, light, energy, and so forth. All of these so-called adopted ideas, perception, belief systems, and so forth that we've taken on, that were all construction of the inverted stuff, it's like you taking a powerful flashlight, okay? You take this light, and it's beaming out light, but each one of these older constructs are a filter. Yeah. So one blocks blue light, the other one blocks green light, the other one blocks this light. I'm just giving you an example. And the thing is, you're saying, I want to see the screen, full spectrum, full color, in focus. And what you said, you have to remove all of those filters, because what happens is even your clarity of what you're seeing is unclear. Like, for example, you have an emotional charge. Anybody have an emotional charge? It taints, in a sense, it shapes what you can see, what you can realize, and even what consciousness you can apply in what you're seeing. That's just one example. If you have a belief and you believe that it's this way, you're filtering out all possibilities or even what really is there. And that's what part of the disclosure is about, is removing these so-called implanted, and what we implanted, we allowed to come into our reality, and saying, oh, this is the way the world works. This is the good thing and the right thing, or whatever it is. So the disclosure is really about those things coming off, and now you can see really what's there and how you can maneuver it, and then how you can even reshape it, and also how you can now, open it up fully, right? That's the thing. So, people people always go, why can't we just do better without clearing out all of our stuff? And I say, well, each one is a filter, each one is a screen, and it actually reduces what you transmit out or project out and what you can receive.
Yeah.
So each time you hold on to anything that was created in inverted 3D and 2D, in the inverted matrix, and somebody says, why can't I see the 5D? And I only get a glimpse of it in meditation, because what's happening temporarily in meditation or going into an altered state, you're moving all of those filters out of the way. So for you to experience all of this stuff, you need to drop all of that, because then you can see it.
Yeah.
Same thing with fear. Fear is huge. With fear, when somebody's experiencing fear, how much resourcefulness do they have? It's either fight or flight, but how about making an option or choosing something else or redirecting something else or just make it disappear? Because
there's a third choice, isn't there? It's not, the
choice.
Duality seems like it presents two choices, but there's actually a third choice.
Yes. And the third choice is huge when you're looking at it. It's like, this is the thing.
I think one of the things that I've noticed, and I've noticed it myself, I'm going to put myself in this category. I mean, is one of the challenges, one of the big challenges for people in these communities and the communities that abut this type of community, is the charge that we get from an individual, from something that's occurring, that we know we're sided, our conviction that that's just not right, and you could go down the list of child trafficking, police brutality, you're a bad mother-in-law, whatever the case is. And I think what you're saying about the whole thing about, is it done for you or you do it yourself? I mean, it would only make sense. We're made in the image. We do it ourselves. But I would think we're at a point now where at a conscious level, we know what's charging us. So how does a person who knows they're being charged by a given situation, which is creating a choice point where they're only looking at the two, I'm either over here or I'm over there. They're not going to do the fluffy love and light that doesn't exist, because it's still going to be there until it's integrated. But how does a person who knows they have a charge, how do they get to that third choice? How do they neutralize these things that give such a charge?
Okay. Even the fluffy lighten thing is a distractional component that we put in just to kind of screen it. So it's a matter of you are who you are. I mean, it doesn't go there. But the thing is, if you've got a charge, I mean, first you got to recognize the charge. You have to look at it. You have to acknowledge it. Okay, I see the charge. I see the charge. And you want to expand the charge. And when I say expand the charge, look at all the things that are attached to the charge. What stories are attached to the charge? And I always recommend people to write all that stuff down. So if you have a charge where you're only seeing the two options, like you said, then you say, okay, it's this or that, or right or wrong, or whatever it is. So you want to look at that and say, okay, this is my charge. This is what's coming up for me. The fear of vulnerability, or whatever. And you write that down and you say, okay, I'm going to look at it. You're going to acknowledge it. I have this charge. What else is connected to it? I want to look at everything. So you acknowledge all of it. Once you've acknowledged it, and especially if you wrote it down, the reason I say write it down, this is very key. The ego is very, very skilled at distractions and throwing you off whatever you're looking at. Because if you're doing it in your mind, okay, unless you really have a super crystal clear mind, and I would say no one is that great, that clear in their mind, especially if you're going through this process stuff. Because if you're that clear in the mind, you don't even have to look at it. But so if you write it down, you can now see it, and you could stay focused, and you can map it out so you can see it. You say, okay, this is my charge. these are the things that are connected to the charges. So I'm going to look at all of those things. And then when you look at the charges, you acknowledge it. I see all of these charges. These are working. Then you go through appreciation. What does that mean? Each one, you now go into appreciation. I appreciate this charge. And then you write down why you appreciate the experiences it provided, the polarity, the separation, because these are all just experiences. So you go into appreciation. And even if there's people involved, different playmates, you appreciate the playmate for playing that role. This is why that last episode I did. Be thankful, appreciate the role that somebody had to play for it. Okay. So you go through that appreciation and for all of it and stay on until as many things you can find appreciation for, because there's nothing that has not, okay, say nothing that you've experienced has not provided you some really powerful opportunity that could not be experienced otherwise without it.
Yeah.
So you go through the appreciation, then go into a state of where your heart opens up and feel love for all of those trigger points or those observation that you've just had and that you've just appreciated. When you love it, it starts to lose its solidity, its main component. And then from that, with that love, you make the choice. You say, okay, I feel completely done with this, so I'm just going to take it and just put it into the field all around you. And so you just envision that and do whatever. But the thing is, what you're doing is you're taking away these filters. So now you're no longer seeing one. The two choices. You're now opening it up. And when it opens up, guess what? Your level of joy, love, and true compassion, we're not even talking about the ego's version of compassion, true compassion, emanates from you. It's like, wow, you see beauty, even in an icy road, and whatever. You see beauty in all of that, but you don't have a charge for it. And then that starts to dissolve from that field.
When you talk about even Mother Earth says that you guys have to engage it, you have to unpack it. In respect to that, and in respect to what is available to us and accessible to us now that you're talking about, and obviously what's going to present itself over the next 3 or 4 months, would you say, or what would you say? What would you say in regard to the any of us that carry a victim perpetrator program? Even if we've done a bunch of work and we all know there's layers and layers and layers and layers, it would just seem to me, as we talked before, that the more engrossed we are in a victim perpetrator narrative or timeline, the less we're going to be able to engage this new energy or this renewed energy. But would you say that the victim perpetrator story and narrative that's been here in duality is up for a big hit here in the next 3 months or so, or at least the opportunity to disassemble it, deconstruct it, and therefore benefit from further engaging this energy you're talking about? Would you say that it's it's coming up for everybody in a big way?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is too, like you said right at the beginning, there's layers and layers and layers. Those layers are being pushed up so powerfully that they're actually merging. So you don't see it as multiple layers. The work that we were doing before took a lot longer in the sense because it's like peeling an onion layers and whatever, or skins, or whatever you call it, and to get closer and closer to the core of it. But right now, it's like when you're peeling a lot of it because it's not like small layers because it's coming to the surface. Now, the hit that you're talking about, that we already are receiving, but it's going to increase even further, so that, how can I say, just to give something power of its realism that was able to be done before, like feeling like you've been taken advantage, that you're a victim, and so forth. Many people are already realizing that it doesn't have the same power that it used
Mm-hmm.
to. It doesn't have the same sting that it used to, and it doesn't make you feel as powerless as before, or feeling in a sense where there was no opportunity to it.
Hmm.
Let's put it this way. Those filters I'm talking about, most people haven't been able to see it. Like, they're showing up, like the
Right.
filter. These energies that are coming in are getting so strong that the filters are becoming more apparent.
Okay.
And not only more apparent, you're also able to see how you can actually address it, remove it.
Would that
Go ahead.
would that also apply to those? I guess it would be like a wounded healer archetype type of thing, but those situations where we identify, I am with this group. This must be corrected. This must be brought to justice. I mean, anything that where we are running a program of somebody's being victimized. Put it that way.
Mhm.
Where we Do you think that will get louder too? Because the other one is, oh, I'm a victim, but these things where we pick up the torch and say they're a victim, I'm going to save this situation, this is the end all cure all. Do you think those things are going to be in our face as well?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And the thing is too, like you said, there's a lot of people have a lot of invested energy and focus on the fact of holding on the wounded person, feeling that you were wronged, or the fact that you're now damaged goods, that you need to heal. Those things are being challenged in a big time, because first of all, nobody's wounded. We created an illusionary because of an experience. It was just an experience. We've labeled it as so, as a wound. We labeled it as a wound. We define ourselves from that wound. And then we're also looking at healing. Well, you have to understand, healing is purposely wired, encoded to take a long time.
Hmm.
And this is why it's been a decade and a half I've been saying, drop the healing idea
Yeah.
and just go through a transformation. That's
Yeah.
it. That's all you're doing. You're
Recoding, reprogramming.
it's like I'm recreating something new about my experience and my
Hmm.
focus, whatever it is. So the so-called wounding is, and this is one of the things, is what's coming up to the surface, is your identification to something that happened, the definition applied to something that happened, the label that something did happen, and that you're marked by it, and the fact that you can't get out of it, that is being disturbed,
Hmm.
shaken up, if you want to call it. Because as long as we're there, because look at it this way, it's not just individual. If we, and I've noticed this, and this is something to pay attention to for people, if you give power to you've been taken advantage of, or the fact that you've been abused, bullied, or the fact that you were harassed or something of that nature, and you've built that, there's a cluster consciousness around that, because there's a lot of people that feeds it. So you're now in a specific swimming pool with that energy and that murkiness,
Yeah.
which is very solidified. So in essence, it's hard to move through it and whatever else. For us to identify with that, it holds us in that space. So that's why it's important to recognize it. Okay. This is why I say acknowledge it, recognize it. The thing is, what we're experiencing now, remember the thing I said about investment. A lot of people invested being in that pool. They put on a special bathing suit and bikini, whatever you want to call it, to be in that pool. And they have a lot of friends in that pool.
Mm-hmm.
Because you'll see a lot of people come together and, oh, what are they going to do? They're going to talk about who did what to you and how it is and so forth. Even if you're not connecting them in person, you're connecting energetically and there's an
Mm-hmm.
exchange going on. Well, that's being shaken up. Let's put it this way. Here you are in this pool, this energy. The lights are still pretty dim, even though it's getting a little brighter. You're starting to notice that you're in this pool. You're also starting to notice the discomfort of the pool, because before it was appeasing, appealing. You know, like you have pain, but if I go there, I'm supported in my pain. So I don't feel as much pain, so much uncomfortableness. But what's happening? Now that's being illuminated more. So now you're starting to notice the shift from being comfortable to uncomfortable. Even though that you have so many people supporting it, it's like, I'm not so comfortable. But then outside of that pool, it's getting brighter. And you're looking at it and I go, wow, it looks a lot brighter out there. It's like, hmm. So there's an urgency, not a sense of saying, well, maybe it's time for me to start walking out of this pool of energy of
Mm-hmm.
victimized, being abused, harassed, and bullied, and all that stuff, and all that I had there. Plus, I'm also ready to let go of all the investment. Investment meaning, you know, getting from people, poor you,
Sunk cost.
goods. Yeah, yeah. So that is going to play throughout the whole year, but it's going to be, the spotlight will be intensified for a lot of those areas in the next 3 months. Okay, March, April, May.
Yeah.
And going into, you know, the June, there's a collective plan to create a pretty impactful shift by June.
Cool.
Okay, that's the plan. That's
Get
the
your bathers ready for the new pool.
so the heading is in that direction, and
Yeah.
everything is coming together. So it's like this: for us to get there, and it's not a place, it's a state. Okay, for us to get to that state, to experience that state collectively, or much more of it, we're kind of opening and subjecting ourselves to having these energies coming in, all the new waves coming in. I mean, there's like daily practically, and all piggyback to each other. Is okay, I'm going to allow it to impact me, and it can feel uncomfortable, it can feel exhilarating at the same time, but it's helping us to get to that. Is it like exactly where we want to be? No, it's the next step closer, right? See, we're giving ourselves the permission. Now, the other thing is too, I think we started the whole conversation that way, and you said that very close, very well in the beginning. One of the other things we get hooked up on is looking at what's around us. And when we look what's around us, there's two things to this. Two things. If we're looking at what's around us and internalize that and then shape our choices based on what we see or how we feel, or the fact that we're waiting for the surroundings to feel that we're on the right direction or anything like that, that is a ploy to slow you down. Now, of course, it's going to make it uncomfortable. The other part is feeling bad for everybody else.
Right.
You have to be, like you said, you're in a position of honoring everybody on their journey, because there's no wrong journey. It doesn't matter if they're going to be in the stuck state for a longer period of time. They have the freedom to come out or not to be here later on, you know. So you let them be. You're not going to go in there, because the thing is, as long as you're trying to save, you're trying to pull people out, you're lowering yourself. You're impeding your progress. The way it really works is you get a higher state. You reflect that higher state. You interact with that higher state. You're there to illuminate. So you become this beautiful light that illuminates everything that they're not seeing much more powerfully, so that they, in an empowered state, make the choice.
That's right.
People do not like to be pulled out. You know, like, save me, save me, save me. No, it doesn't work that way, because what happens is that because they didn't get to have the opportunity, they're going to find another hole to jump into.
Mm-hmm.
Analogy.
Yeah, it's that you're not just impeding yourself, you're actually impeding the other person.
Correct.
Right. I want to ask you too, just to try to put something out there to help people. I love that example you gave earlier about the person that you talked to in the last couple of days, and about the sunk cost. Like she had 5 or 6 years of education, and that's a sunk cost. You got to do something with it. Well, the truth is, you don't have to do anything with it. And I guess what I'm getting at is some of these convictions that we have and these identifications. I love what you said about the bathers, because you're talking about ego death. You're talking about, okay, if I let that go, what am I? That confusion and that I know nothing state, which we know is such a beautiful thing. But anyway, in regard to that, in terms of, okay, well, you and I have talked a bit, on the show about, I told you about some of the galactic memories I had years back, and then how they came back and the messages they were giving me. And we did a show recently in the last couple of months where I was saying, I was able to go beyond galactic and look at everything, because even the galactic timeline or whatever, there was still duality, and there was still dark and light, right? But in regard to, because your understanding or your explanation, let me put it that way, your explanation and your connection to the aspects that you've been working with since you were in the womb, for me, it's the easiest to comprehend in terms of I'll call it the soul network. So you got the oversoul and the monads and the twins, and so all of that stuff, right? Bottom line is, and I'm just going to be very direct because I really want to help people, in terms of the worst thing we can think of, child trafficking, child sexual abuse, and blah, 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 right? Not to take anything away from it. In this game, or in any game, can a soul be hurt in the physical incarnation? Can it be hurt, the soul itself? I mean, I know at some level of the soul network, it's impenetrable, impervious to anything because of its own knowing. But is that a threat? I mean, I think a lot of people, not a lot, I'm not going to say that, but I think there's enough people in these communities and coinciding communities that you hear a lot of it about the children, about things that, again, the most horrific thing we can imagine. Can a soul be hurt in the game?
No, the soul can never be hurt. The soul can adopt an imprint that it may choose at some point to deal with it, in a sense of saying, okay, I'm going to replicate something so that I can actually complete it in a different form. But I'll tell you one thing. Human entities and souls do step out when stuff like that is happening.
You mean when it? Oh, I just want to be clear. So when it's happening to an individual,
yes.
You mean okay?
Okay, so that it actually just observes it, so it doesn't get the same full-blown impact.
Yeah.
You can experience it as a how can I call it? As a memory of an experience, but it does not have the same thing.
Yeah.
Like you said something else earlier too that also relates to this. The only thing that can get harmed, or what looks like it gets harmed, that it can attach itself to, is the ego.
Yeah.
The ego that has investment. It's the ego that has an issue with a lot of different things that are playing out. And it's the ego that goes into identification of what happened, what's going on. I need to this or that to unravel myself from that experience.
Yeah.
And the woundedness is just a memory. But at the same time, what happens with the memory is that unless it's utilized by the ego, it doesn't become real.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It makes it real. Oh, while you're wounded. The soul does not, the human entity does not, and not even the body. The body itself may have, say, a locked up energetic imprint or something like that. But with the energies going on, it just purges out anyways. So you may have pain or something. So you want to put your attention wherever that pain is, and discomfort, and illuminate light to it, or meaning your heart, your love for it. And a lot of times that just dissolves it. So no, what's used to happen is that souls would take on imprints, and that was known. Imprints, meaning it leaves a sampling of that experience within the soul, with the opportunity in another incarnation to relive it in a form to be able to kind of experience it more fully in a different state, so it dissolves it. That's what the whole karma thing was all about when it was active. It hasn't been active for quite some time now, 35 years, I think. Well, not quite 35, but close to 30 something. It was the souls and human entities worked in the fact that it wanted to play both polarities in the polarity world. And so what it would do, because not we've all, one way or another, if you incarnate on this planet and some of the other planets that supported polarity, have played dark and have played light, the separational component. Well, we're all one anyways, or I mean that we're a holistic. We've played it. So just the fact is that, well, I'm a light worker now. You may have played a dark worker at one time, whatever. So the soul itself would go have the polarities to create balance, but that was a slow progression. And at that time it was fine. But since 87, it decided, nah, we're not going to do that anymore. We're just going to move through. So we'll carry imprints, little bits of it, bring it up, and so forth.
So it's like a residual that by choice the soul keeps with it because it sees it as a tool for a greater expansion, a greater experience. I think that's what you're saying. And on that note, and I don't say this or ask this because I want to poo-poo anything away, everybody's got to do their own thing, but the reality is that, and this is a question, that regardless of when we made the decision to put ourselves in whatever situation we have, or situations we've chosen to. And that to me really speaks loud, because that is, when it comes to judgment, and it comes to wounded healer archetype, and it comes to whatever separation, that more than ever, respect of stay in your own lane and honor the journey of your own journey and of others, because there's no way, this doesn't seem to me, there's too much egoic involvement to sit here and try to be God, and say, that's good, that's bad, I'm right, you're wrong. It's just something beyond our human only aspect, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, so
yeah, exactly. So, there's a couple of things that changed. As of the end of 2012, going into 2013, each and every soul that left the planet at this point in time, and each and every human entity that disembodied, meaning leaving the body, would go through a purging process. And what that would mean, that anything that it's experienced as an imprint, say like torture to death, for just an example, that's very low frequency, very low state. There's perfection, there's nothing wrong with it, but at the same time, the soul would actually have all of those lower ranges cleared out. So the imprint would not be able to have the same impact. That started in 2013, the end of 2012 going into 2013. Now, as of 2020, phase 3 came in. So each and every soul and human entity that leaves actually gets pretty well almost everything wiped out that was in a reflection of polarity, and especially if it's low vibration. So when it embodies, it's already coming back with that higher level. So there's no really souls that are coming in at this point in time with heavy, really low
Right.
vibrational imprint in it. And same thing with the human entity. So that was kind of a measure that was collectively agreed upon so that we do not have all this unfinished business or all this other stuff that we were talking about before. So even if a soul, like you said, was involved and wanted to have that whole experience of saying being tortured to death and then having your blood sucked out, whatever it is. I mean, souls don't even last that long because it usually steps out before that. But even if it did get all of that, the fact that it leaves the physicality, it has to go through that process where all of that polarity, intensity, and pain, I don't know, that's not the right word. The whole experience is purged.
Right. It sounds like, to me, it sounds like the 2012, what you cited in 2012 and even 87, but in 2020, certainly, it sounds like to me, my feel for it is, and I don't mean this in a with finality, like a human only would think, but like something's coming to an end here. Like something's be ending and beginning, I guess, like, because why would you not carry the residual? And then again, if I look at some of the commentary I've read and people that have been on the show, they just say it different. And they might say something like, for instance, the prerequisite to come into the womb, the frequency, the level of acceptance, the frequency has now gone up. Or the crystal children are coming in, or whatever generation is coming in, and they're a higher frequency. They're not affected by these things that you're talking about. So that fits with, what some other people have said.
Yeah, the souls that are coming in all have to be a certain range of frequency now. It doesn't mean that they're specifically indigos or crystals or rainbow or star seeds or anything of that. There is that, but that's not the bulk of what's coming in. The bulk of it is coming in that souls that are not bringing that. Why? Because the playground is purging all of that. It's not going to be supportive. So why bring something else that needs to be cleared out?
Right.
Because not being, let's put it this way. It's not saying, okay, we're going to allow you to be able to experience it. Before, yes, because there was still a lot of that. Right now, it's like, no, we're not bringing in more stuff to deal with. We're just basically purging what's already.
It's like bringing in a program that was based on Windows 3 or something, like square peg, round hole. Like it's not.
Yeah,
it's not.
Exactly.
Yeah. God,
So they're all coming in at a higher vibration and much more online in a sense where they actually are able to. Now, the only thing that they do, okay, I'll give you some more insight. What they do is sometimes, I should say sometimes, a portion of the time, they'll come through the money, the mother, and the lineage. And it will say, okay, I'm coming in clear. I'm carrying a high thing. It's not going to be sticky, but I'm going to help the family by taking some of this stuff to help it illuminate it and dissolve it, right? So they'll pick up things from mom's experience or what dad has left in encodements, or what the two, either of the lineages that they're coming through. So they'll pick up certain things, but not to define themselves from it. They'll have part of that experience and purge it. So is it that soul came in with that stuff? No, the soul came in pretty clean, but it picked up something as of service.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've actually seen that. Well, I think a lot of us have seen that, when people talk about the black sheep and you came into, but I've actually seen that here recently, very closely. And I totally get what you're saying, even in my own family and in a friend's family. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I had the greatest question in all the 30 episodes that we've done, and I can no longer think of what it was. I was going to end the show with it, but and the second one, I had two, but there was one I was going to ask you that would have kind of got us out the door well. But I'm glad that you explained the reality of the soul in the way that you did, because I do think that a big part of what our challenge is in terms of stepping forward is our attachment to some of the lower level things that are here, which if you turn that upside down, it's how much do you believe you are an eternal soul? How much do you believe you're a limitless being? And, we spend so much time on the defense. I just, me, I'm a big rah-rah cheerleader. I'm ready for the offense. But well, you mentioned something. We can close with this. And well, I'll say that afterwards. But you mentioned something, and it really struck me. And you said it very matter of factly in terms of Mother Earth, and you said even Mother Earth says that you've got to engage it. In other words, no one's going to do it for you, and so surely she's not going to do it for us. But I mean, I don't think you've ever really expanded on this. I've heard other people talk about it, but you obviously have a lot of clarity in your connection and your understanding of Mother Earth. Who is she? What is she? How would you explain that to somebody?
Okay. The reason we call it a she is because it has a mothering sort of energy and a supportive energy, and that's how we relate it to. It doesn't have a gender by any means, but it's an energy of nurturing, an energy of support. It's like our mother, in the sense. The mother carries us in her womb. So we're kind of the body itself, and then all the embodiments like the human entity and so forth are in the womb of mom. Now, mom is going to provide nutrients. It's going to provide an environment of sort. But it's up to the child, every child, to use that and to come in its own expression. You've created the best environment as an entry point, but then, the mother will be still nurturing and supporting in that regards. And this is why we get a lot of energies and some of the grounding stuff that we connect with Mother Earth, or what we call Gaia. But at the same time, Gaia we are physically an extension of Gaia. And what is Gaia? Gaia is source, or spirit of source. It is a consciousness. It is not a form, but it represents its form as a specific consciousness that harnesses the capacity for us to come and express our individualized consciousness within it, which is still all source. So we're basically, when we take on a body, we're entering the field, the cluster field of Gaia, and we play on Gaia. So Gaia is saying, okay, for us to collectively grow and expand and become what we are in the most grandest aspect, each one of us is the one that's actually going to evolve, which inclusive to the evolution of Gaia as we are. So it's a dance. It's like we're playing together. We're growing together. The same thing between a mother and a child. A mother and a child, the mother creates this beautiful environment as best as possible. Sometimes it doesn't always look that way, but the best as possible in the womb, and then kind of plays a role to nurture the child. Now, if a mother doesn't actually nurture it and somebody else does, or a group or whatever else, it's still kind of that motherly extension sort of thing.
Right.
So what I was going to say with that is that the mother and the child is the teacher and the student at the same time. So the mother's learning from the child is learning from the mother. And the child is sharing with the mother, and the mother's sharing with and when I say sharing, it's not so much teaching, it's more sharing its own experiences. So what happens? Both are evolving to some degree or another. The mother evolves from the expression and experiencing of the child, and the child does the same thing. So that's the relationship that we have with Gaia.
Yeah.
So Gaia is offering us all it has to offer. We experience it, and what we're experiencing, because we're a direct link to it, it's actually internalizing and expressing it even further. So Gaia is saying, it's like the mother's not going to carry the child all the time, because it won't learn how to walk.
Right.
Mother's not going to tie its shoes. It's not going to do everything, chew the food and put it in their mouth for any long period of time, even if they do it from the beginning, because it's saying, I'm going to help you until you get that grasp, but you are doing it. You're going to do it. And you're going to do it even better than I am, or some way
There
differently.
you go.
And it's coming in. So that's the relationship of ourselves with Gaia and ourselves as
Great. That's a great explanation. I saw this post. I got to get out of here. We got a show in 14 minutes, but I can talk to you. I can talk to you forever. I don't know. So I saw this this quote. It's by this guy named Bob Frizzell. Nothing in this book is true, but it's exactly as things are. And this is the quote. He says, we, I don't know who's stating this, but we will be making the shift as a conscious planet as though we were a million years advanced. Many higher aspects of life everywhere are begging to come down here through birth or as a walk-in to directly experience this because it is so unusual. How do you feel about that statement?
Well, definitely it is a very unique experience. Planet Earth and the physical forms and all the sentient beings on planet Earth was a real major experiment of pushing what we can call, just as an analogy, technology to a certain degree. This
Right.
makeup is very different because of going to a heavy duty polarity, heavy duty separation, and now complete reversal and enhancement. The progress that we're making in such a short period of time is so phenomenal in comparison to any place else.
Okay.
Within the whole galaxy itself, pretty well. And I know some people may challenge me on that, but the thing is, it is. I've observed it. And I'm not saying Franco has observed it. It is my soul that observed it and has seen it. Because even when it was created, this is why it's such a main focus from many solar systems within the galaxy. And it's such an attractiveness, even if it comes in for a short period of time. And because of even getting so lost in the game temporarily, it's so amazing. It's like going to an amusement park that has the most wildest ride that will turn your stomach to, no matter what you have in you, it's coming out of you, right? And as much as that seems like, who the hell wants that experience? It really is appealing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. I know I'm biased, but at least I know I'm partially right. I know that it's my ego that says this is the most special place ever. But I can't imagine being anywhere and having a realization or an experience or just an embodiment and saying to yourself, this is the best place I could possibly be. I mean, that to me is like, I don't know. You can't make it. You can't fake it up. I mean, you can't make it up. You can't fake it. Hey, we've got to get out of here. We've got Yvonnya in 11 minutes.
Okay.
I can't wait to talk to Franco probably in a couple of 2-3 weeks.
I think we're scheduled in a couple of weeks. 13th, I think, yes.
Well, because what you just brought up is what I wanted to get into today. But it was about the whole universal family and its role and involvement, how that's a part of this, what part of that is us, what part of it is more separate from us, even though we know it's not separate. You know what I mean? But yeah, I wanted to get into all that. Maybe we can do that next time.
Yeah, that would be great, because there's something really phenomenal about that, how it communicates with us and how crucial, that's not the right word, but how important it is that how we reflect back to the whole galaxy is amazingly profound and powerful for
I've always kind of got that little messages about that, but I'm feeling that a lot lately, like to the point where I almost want to start crying. Oh my God, I'm honored. I'm like on my knees, right? But yeah, hopefully we can talk about that next time. I put up Franco's and Kimberly's PayPal 4 times on all the platforms, and please join Soulogy. And if you resonate with what Franco and Kimberly are doing, please join Soulogy in supporting their efforts. It is the new library of Alexandria is developing on Franco and Kimberly's creations of advancing consciousness and the different platforms that they come out on. So please consider supporting them with a contribution and pay it forward, because their work is invaluable. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. And the very best with all of the stuff you're doing. And yeah, maybe one day we'll connect just to chat about all the stuff that you're doing on Soulogy and how the other platform, your platform is coming along and so forth. Not that it's an urgency, but whenever you feel.
I'm just getting settled now, and I'm ready to do that. So don't be shy, you know. And my problem is that whole fragmented memory thing. Like, I know I hit you up like 3 weeks ago. I said, and actually, to be honest with you, that was semi-distress, and I don't do that. If I have an issue, I don't handle it. I might go to Morgan, obviously, but I'm like, I got to talk to him about this because I got some stuff coming in. But I worked it out, and it just worked out. But I'll see you later. Thank you so much. Best to Kimberly.
You guys. Yes, I will. I don't